Hi, everybody. I'm really proud of you for getting through last week. Thanks for being so wonderful with your discussion posts, finishing the quiz, and sending in your midterms, which I'm looking forward to grading and hopefully getting back to you by the end of this week or early next week. So, you're not going to hear very much from me this week. I would really like you to interact with your primary sources, the reading March, the graphic novel. I'd really like you to look at that in a way that looks at the history but also considers the format. And I'd also like you to really kind of dig into Black Power Mixtape and look at that as a film with primary sources, as well as a film that's a critique by a group that isn't of this country, right? By these Swedish reporters. So I'd like you to consider all of these things. And in saying that, I'm going to keep this a very short lecture. But to begin, I just really want to talk about the difference between de jure and de facto segregation, which some of you might have heard of before. And just looking at the definitions, and I'll kind of read these to you real quickly as well, and thinking about the concepts of these two things. So, de jure segregation, as defined by the American Heritage Dictionary, defines de jure as according to law. And Webster's Unabridged Dictionary looks at the definition as by right, of right, by a lawful title, and by law. So, in thinking about this de jure segregation and think about jurisdiction, this is segregation that's created by a jury, by the law, right? And so we can mention these Jim Crow laws, which you'll be reading about, which require these literacy tests before voting. They require the segregation of buses, segregation of restaurants, which will be a big theme this week, school segregation, all of these laws that are mandated, right? De facto segregation is a little less clear. It's again, this dictionary, according to American Heritage, de facto means actual. So de jure and de facto kind of differ, right? De facto can be actual segregation as seen by housing laws and just kind of racial distinctions between neighborhoods that aren't necessarily written by law, but by these structural differences. Especially Kevin Boyle writes extensively about difference in housing costs and prices, and in the neighborhood of Detroit, inside and outside of Detroit, how different housing costs kept black individuals from moving into white neighborhoods because they couldn't afford it, and because there were certain things written by individual landlords that caused them to not be able to move in because there were individuals who were worried their housing price would go down. So that isn't something that's written into law, but it's an actual factual way that there's segregation in the city. And honestly, you can see that a lot in Columbus in these current times as well. If you look at the school system and you look at the difference in neighborhoods in the city, and that kind of de facto segregation is still very much with us today, even though it isn't mandated by law. And so I just wanted to kind of talk to you about that really quickly and see if you can see these threads of de facto and de jure segregation in these writings, in these texts, especially when we think about the differences between the South and the North, right? The South is seen as a place where buses are still segregated, where, we have these freedom riders who are coming from the North where they're allowed to ride the bus to the South where they aren't welcome. And what does that mean to cross state lines from this almost de facto segregation to one that is enforced by law? And so just keep this in mind, this haziness between enforced segregation, right? Or I should say mandated segregation, and segregation that exists because of mentalities, because of the way the system has been for so long, because of fear and because of prejudice. So that's my short little intro into that, and I look forward to seeing your discussion posts this week and hearing anything, any comment-wise, things you have on the material. Feel free to put it in the discussion or send me an email if anything is especially poignant to you this week. I look forward to hearing from you all. So thank you so much, and I'll talk to you soon.